Thank you, Fazal. Welcome to the February meeting of the Toronto section of the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. My name is Paul Briscoe. I'm privileged to be the chair of the section, and I welcome you on behalf of our executive, your executive, in fact. A couple of special welcomes tonight. We have a new Canadian regional governor who we'll be introducing tonight. No applause yet. He will be speaking a little bit and tell you all about what he's going to do for the next while. That's Randy Conrad from Harris Broadcast. And we also have, not coincidentally, another governor in the building tonight. I'm going to actually ask him to stand up and take a bow. Carl Kuhn from Tektronix. Hello, Carl, from the DC area. So nice to have some fancy SMPTE people here. And of course, Steckley's here, but we know he's fancy. Anyway.
Four board members.
Well, that's true. Well, we'll get to him. He's a highlight tonight. So we have an interesting evening. Coming up next month is National Engineers Month in Canada. It's next week's National Engineering Week in the U.S. What it takes them a week to do takes us a month to do, which I guess perhaps is the Canadian way. So in honor of that, we've decided to make tonight Technology and Standards Night. And we have three presenters who are all three participants in the standards development process. And in fact, Alan Lanshed, we'll hear a little bit more about later, and he'll be telling some stuff, is the new Standards Vice President of SMPTE. So we're really, really pleased to have Alan not only as a member of the section, forever I think, but also have him here with us this evening to share his information. The food tonight has been sponsored by the section, specifically by our Toronto Technical Seminar, which I'll talk to you about in a second as well. Just want to touch on a little message here, which gives me a segue. Of course, the standards of SMPTE are one of the three pillars. We're going to talk about standards tonight. The other two are membership and education. And I want to talk about them briefly because, I'm going to push the right button here, gives me an opportunity to tell everybody that we are once again holding our biennial technical seminar, our boot camp, number 6 in the series, in June. And we're calling it Motion Media Everywhere. Nothing's following a linear path anymore. We have media coming from all sides. We have new formats, we have new topologies for moving things around, and it's all a great big mess. So we're going to spend 2 days and try and paint a much stronger picture of what's going on and provide really useful real-time information on where the heck everything's going. So that's in June, and we'd love very much for everyone to attend. In addition, the call for papers for that is open. And this is a really good deal if you'd like to submit a paper, because if you submit a paper for presentation, you get to attend the whole thing for free. So what we're looking for are people who have involvement in some leading edge technology. It doesn't have to specifically be 4K UHD-TV or IP or internet distribution. If it's something new and something different that the majority of people don't know an awful lot about, put in a synopsis, propose an idea. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you come and present for us. And some people laugh and say, oh yeah, I don't know anything about that. We just do blah, blah, blah. Well, your blah, 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 which is every day to you, you need to take a step back and really assess whether or not that's something that interests others. If in doubt, submit a proposal. And we'll pick the best ones we can fill the time with, and if what you've submitted is relevant and a good topic, well, you'll be part and parcel. So you can submit paper abstracts to simplypapers@gmail.com, and you have until the end of March to do that. I really look forward to seeing some input from some of the people in the room. I'm looking around at some usual suspects who I certainly hope will come through. Tonight, however, we're going to talk about standards. The perhaps most important pillar, the membership and education stuff. Well, that's why we're all here, and that's why we do the boot camp, and that's why we do our meetings. But tonight we're going to focus on standards. And the standards process led to this definition of what SMPTE stands for, of the society of many people talking endlessly, because the standards process is an informal process. It's very rigorous. It's step by step to ensure that the standards that are finally agreed to are agreed to by everybody and meet everybody's needs. And Alan's going to tell us about the process tonight. And Alan, Lee, and myself are going to tell you about some of the standards activities underway. I recently, however, learned it doesn't stand for this at all. It stands for Senior Managers Pretending They're Engineers. So that's perhaps another way to look at the whole standards thing. So our agenda tonight, the first 2 items are out of order. We're going to hear from Mr. Steckley first about CES. He attended CES and he has some very interesting observations. And then Randy Conrad will come up and talk a little bit about being the new Canadian governor and how that feels. And then we'll get off with the technical presentation. So, with that in mind, We're going to skip Randy's title slide until later, and Mr. Whitcomb, over to you.
Thank you. So tonight's lectures are split between two things. So there's going to be a little bit on CES, so some sort of technical engineering kind of interesting stuff that's going on, and then we'll get into the standard stuff. Out of curiosity, SMPTE did a webcast a couple weeks ago sort of on some of the highlights at CES. Did anyone watch the SMPTE webcast 2 weeks ago? No? Anyway, if you didn't, I'm not sure where on the website, but if you check out the SMPTE website, it was sort of interesting highlights of some sort of technical experts and sort of their highlights there, so definitely worth checking out if you haven't. Yeah, so we're going to start off here with Paul. So Paul Steckley is the president and owner of Applied Electronics. Paul's a graduate of the University of Waterloo and has worked in the broadcast industry for over 30 years. This is his 7th year being on the SMPTE Board of Governors. He currently holds the position of membership vice president. So, and over to you, Paul.
Or as I say, born in it, raised in it, still in it. So this is really just this is a very, very informal, in fact, just to get it started here. Okay, we're good. So this is a very informal series of pictures. I'm going to describe things as I go along. How many people have been to the Las Vegas Convention Center? Good, most of you. So what I'm going to do is a picture tour entering the South Hall, going through the South Hall, doing a lap around the South Hall lower, to the South Hall upper, to the section connecting the South Hall to the Central Hall, around the Central Hall, through the area where the concession stands and places to eat are, and over to the North Hall, and then back a little bit through the north part of the Central Hall, and then out to the cab line. So this is, I took this with an eye to doing this presentation tonight. So here I am going through the entrance to the South Lower. One of the things they said this year, the attendance was affected, and a number of people I knew who were going to CES was affected by the weather. So a number of people were trapped at various airports by the time they could rebook their flights. A couple days of the show were already over. And so going through the South Lower Hall, one of the first sections you run into is the audio section. I'll cover more of this later on. Tremendous amount. I was a bit surprised to see how much traditional audio equipment and how much retro audio equipment is there. Also in the South Lower Hall are all the various associations. So these are things like the HDMI Industry Association, the DisplayPort Industry Association, and one called Home Grid. And so I perused some of those. Interesting, my son a month ago put together a gaming computer with an NVIDIA card that already is 4K compatible with a dual-link DisplayPort on it. And it's interesting, if you're following what's going on with HDMI, it isn't going to cut it for 4K. So these are some of the things that we're showing in the DisplayPort booth, what they call their 12K by 2K, which is 3 4K monitors linked together. There was a few of these around. 4K at 60 hertz, something that HDMI can't do now until you go to HDMI 2. This is another association called the Home Grid Forum. This is basically a control system that goes over your power outlets. I'm going to go through these quite fast. Your end-to-end connected, the marvel of the end-to-end connected home. So then down the South Hall, I went into the robotics section, and this is where I'd say the show got a little bit freaky. So in the back of the South Lower Hall were various fitness and robotics. In fact, probably half or more of the South Lower Hall was fitness and robotics. So these are some of the various exercise massage machines. People are trying out various massage chairs. A lot of Bluetooth audio around. It was interesting. That was one common item I saw throughout the show. People getting rid of the audio wires for home wiring. Bluetooth. Every now and then you found something really strange. This was a guy selling drill bits. So, drilling through, he's madly drilling through brake rotors, concrete, and everything else. It warmed my heart to see somebody selling antennas. There were few and far between, but this was in the South Lower Hall. This was the most hilarious thing I saw at the show. This is some silly competitor to a Segway or something. It's a little unicycle. I don't know if you remember Laugh-In, if you're old enough to remember Laugh-In and Artie Johnson riding the little tricycle and falling over. I saw person after person get on this stupid thing and fall over. So here's this guy trying. I sat there for a few minutes and watched him, and he never got more than a foot and a half before he either fell over and tried to ride himself. This is a robotic thing to clean the top of your barbecue grate. It madly goes around, and when it bounces off the side, it madly changes and turns. It was really quite fast and vigorous. I was really quite impressed. This was a robo-mom. You put your baby in this, and when it senses your baby doing various things, it either calls you to come get him, or keeps him or her amused with something over top. But it has all sorts of various things to plug in and be a mother, so you don't have to be, I guess. This was one of the many free-roaming robots. Every now and then you'd be going down the aisles and somebody would drive one into you to make some sort of point. This is a robot that I guess you just put something in. I thought it was a mobile waste paper basket. I guess you put something in it and say, Bob, go down to Joe's office and drop it off for me, will you? This reminded me of a Woody Allen movie, Sleep. And in fact, I stood there for several minutes. These are some sort of massager, or they're looking at something. They seem to be enjoying it, but anyways, I watched those guys in some sort of trance for several minutes, wearing this portable massager. There were several booths, this one quite substantial, offering to make you a dancing robot and play your company jingle and or put your company logo on it, and it basically dances. They could be connected together so they could do the same thing at the same time. This was kind of interesting. This was a bit frightening. These are pan tilt heads for DSLRs. There are quite a few brands of them. So imagine you can wear a pendant or take a smartphone. They were being advertised, obviously, for consumer use, but also for journalistic use. Basically, they were meant for people who wanted to do a presentation and be the talent at the same time. They were really quite impressive, the quality of the movement and the way they worked. This was going over to the sports section. These were a lot of things to analyze. So basically, you put on their apparatus, it connects to your smartphone, and tells you that you're running. So this is one of the many fitness monitoring tools throughout the show. So one of the things I really liked about CES, and it kind of breaks down in various parts, but in the South Hall, they tried to put everything into logical areas. So when I get to things like 3D printing, you'll see 3D printing was in the same area. All the associations, DisplayPort, HDMI, they were all in the same area. And then they put fitness technology in roughly the same area. And this was the one for robotics, so I'm leaving robotics and going into the fitness area. But not without seeing this thing. And this was one of the remote control. You can walk and talk into it, and it makes the avatar on the screen. And these are one of the ones that's chasing people around the aisles. This is the HDMI. I don't know if Al's going to speak about this. It's not really a SMPTE issue, but HDMI, in terms of the UHD, has a problem. HDMI 60 hertz, I think it requires HDMI 2. There's all sorts of color space issues. It's safe to say that HDMI has to go back to the drawing board. So this is a huge disjoint between where we are in terms of the evolving television standards and consumer sets. DisplayPort has an advantage over HDMI, but it's not as widely deployed, obviously. So this is the HDMI consortium trying to make good at 4K at 60. And again, the logical orientation. This is just cool, a big pair of headphones. You can actually walk through them, there was sound coming out of them. This is a robot that cleans your window. Stick this thing to the window, and there were people staring at it from both sides as it climbed up and down and cleaned your window. The gaming showcase. Gaming was maybe not quite as big as I thought. I can't remember which game it was, but they were saying one game like Grand Theft Auto or whatever had an opening day of $800 million. And now the gaming introduction of major games vastly exceeds that of a lot of major motion pictures. So definitely competing for my son's entertainment. This was a number of free roaming toys. So they basically gave you the app on your smartphone, and you got to run these balls around the circuit, and you could control it by whatever phone you were carrying. It was warmed my heart to see good old-fashioned pinball machines. This was one of the busier parts of the gaming area. Again, the Digital Health Summit. So this is a group for people making digital health technology. So this is one of the many things. Measures your cardiac, measures how much you sweat, measures your body mass. So basically you can't run anywhere without being connected now. Surprised to see this section was small. I expected to see a lot more wearable wristwatches and whatnot. I only saw a little bit in the South Hall, and maybe about a 60-foot area where a few people were showing wearable Android devices, phones, whatever a smartphone does on your wrist. So, IEEE, these were dancing robots that did rap music, but again, most industry associations were at the show. This was really cool. This was my camera doesn't do it justice. This was a ultra fine pitch LED. Most people thought it was a big, the dot pitch on it was similar to about an 80-inch LCD screen, and it was like 15 or 10 meters wide. It was an absolutely spectacular display, and it drew a big crowd. And I tried to take a picture of it, but you can see the moire of my sensor shows up. It was spectacular quality, one of the most impressive direct view devices I saw at the show. Of course, there were various drone people. NVIDIA, being a car race nut, I tried the car and found out it was very unrealistic, but this is gaming at 1.5 billion pixels per second. So one of the many immersive three-screen screen displays throughout the show. NVIDIA, this was in the South Upper. This was one of the biggest booths in the South Hall, was the NVIDIA booth, and one of the most crowded. Obviously, we're seeing them in our industry a lot. So just a general look down the South Upper at the crowds. This is the first car I saw. Maybe a sign of the times, but I would say as much space or more was devoted to automotive technologies and smart car things than was devoted to television. So I think one of the most striking things about the show is how much car stuff there was and how relatively small the whole area concerning televisions were. 3D printing, my son is dying to get one. There was one company that was offering 3D printers that were 0.2 microns, and one that was offering a 3D printer that could print in concrete, could print a house. So many, it was one of the emerging sections at the show. You can see a variety of these devices. By springtime, this technology will be a lot cheaper and more practical for home use. Looking at $400 to $1,000. This was a cool thing. This was MakerBot's one of the bigger companies in this space. You can put an object on it and digitize it. And then, of course, this isn't the same object, but you could send it to that device and it would copy it. So, various 3D printers. So as you left the South Hall, you went into a large dedicated section for Intel. And this was a very, very large section. This and the LG booth were probably the two largest areas. This was kind of a small city more than it was a booth. So in the hall, they were showing these connected cars. And being a big car guy, as I sat and looked at these connected cars, I wanted to say there should be an app that says, "Shut up and drive!" Because there were so many things in terms of car connectivity, new displays, heads-up displays. You'll see as I go through this how much is devoted to cars. So BMW had looked like a couple of hundred of these cars at the show. You could book an appointment to take one for a spin around downtown Las Vegas. If they trusted you, they let you go alone. If they didn't trust you, they sent somebody out with you. But this is one of the ultra-connected electric cars by BMW. and showing BMW's connected car system. So again, a huge booth occupying the area going from the South Hall into the Central Hall. A number of different displays, technologies. Of course, the GoPro booth, one of the most crowded, busiest booths. Across from it was this Dish Network. Can't quite hear the crickets chirping, but needless to say, the GoPro booth, everything around it, it seemed to suck in all the attendees, and all these other booths were quite lonely around it. Of course, they had to have a sleek car. This is a car called a Pagani. They make about 25 of them a year. And Qualcomm, of course, was one of the ones adjacent to the GoPro booth, looking very lonely. Interesting how many old names. The RCA booth, waiting for somebody to show up.
Did you notice the name made for today? It says.
Yeah. This looked a little sad. This is one of the most biggest thoroughfares that you had to walk through. And as I walked through, I never saw anybody sit there. And there I saw the HD radio. Across from RCA was the HD radio booth. If you look closely, you'd see somebody beating a dead horse. Back to the RCA booth, waiting for somebody to show up. LG, I tell you, of all the booths I've ever seen at a trade show, this one took the cake. This was not a booth, this was a city. I don't know if you know the story of LG and Samsung, but it's like the Hatfields and McCoys. There are families in Korea that define themselves by whether or not they're an LG or Samsung family. But I couldn't even begin to guess how big this booth was, but it was an absolute city inside. So I have a couple of pictures coming and going from this, but basically everything from washers, dryers, vacuums, to consumer electronics in the television business. All sorts of connected technologies. Of course, your smartphone has to connect to your fridge for whatever reason. Just some incredible stuff. But there, I found world's first 16 by 9 curved Ultra HD TV. 21 by 9. It was amazing how many places were showing 21 by 9. Alan, have you heard of 21 by 9 yet? Guess what? The consumer guys are planning to make television sets in this already. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm on one of the oldest standards organizations, and for the first time I go to Consumer Electronics and see 21 by 9. All of the UHD TV sets of any note were curved. I won't get into it now, but personally I believe it. With the new color space, the Rec 2020 color space, the high dynamic range, the dot pitch, given that most people are using much bigger screens at much closer viewing distances now, 4K, the curve, it makes all sorts of sense. Gives you, if you remember the first IMAX projector down at the C&E or down at Ontario Place when you went over the roller coaster without any 3D technology, it made you feel like you were more immersed in the picture. Basically, plan on all the UHD sets being curved, except for one vendor. So, anyways, this got a lot of attention. It looked spectacular. Didn't show a lot of motion on it. So then, off to the side, this wasn't really their feature. The feature was the 21 by 9. Off to the side was little old 4K.
So is that a 5K?
They didn't really elaborate on it. No, I mean, you tried to find somebody. It was like the OLED thing. If you're following OLEDs, there's another interesting story I'll get into in a minute about OLEDs. But really, I was surprised at how they had de-emphasized 4K. And of course, UHTV 3860 is not 4K. In the true sense of the word, it's a 16 by 9 adaptation of it. So they basically showed, far less prominently than their curved 21 by 9 sets, their Ultra HD lineup. This was interesting. There are something like 21, in China, the corporations are organized and owned by provinces. So there are several booths around where people are wondering what they're selling. What they're selling is the province in China. So this was a boat-shaped, and it was showing one of the holding groups that many corporations participate in China. But there were actually provinces that had booths, and all the companies that were in their provinces. A lot of people. This is one of 3 Lamborghinis. Sorry, you can't bring me to a show without me showing the cars off. but a lot of cars throughout the show. So this is a special Lamborghini they're going to make 3 of. Into the Panasonic booth, interesting, very much dwarfed by LG and Samsung, but sure enough, go in there and there's a 4K set to greet you. This was really good. This was actually a demonstration of a stitched Texas college game that they showed. So they kept explaining that the mullions were there just because of the displays that were using. But this was one of the new ideas in 4K where you can take 2 or 3 cameras and you can digitally stitch them together to show a single game without moving the cameras. And this was showing an actual game that was recorded. Allowed you to go in and pick region of interest and basically do some production of, mock production of the game. But I think you're going to see a lot of 4K. I know Alan's company is neck deep into it, but I think we're only beginning to see the start of the 4K revolution for conventional HD TV production. This was a curved OLED. Why not? We're curving them one way, why not curve them the other way? So this was a spectacular display. Anybody have a little problem with OLEDs and why you can't buy one yet of any great size? I didn't know this until I went to the fall conference of SMPTE. I didn't realize that an OLED is actually good old DuPont phosphor energized by an LED. So the problem is the blue only lasts 5,000 hours. And the same thing they had with plasmas where they widened the blue and tried to put more twice as many blue pixels. Nobody can really make one that doesn't start to severely diminish after 5,000 hours. So it was interesting when you went up and started asking people about that, how vague, nobody could give you a straight answer on it. But everybody was asking about OLEDs, and nobody was planning to ship one. And most people assume it's because nobody's really figured out what to do about this blue degradation problem. So this is from the cafeteria in the central hall. This is in the area where the food court is, looking out. I can't tell you what Sigma does, but I spent some time looking at them, and whatever it was big and important. Huh?
They make lenses.
Oh, I don't think it's that Sigma, though. No, some other Sigma. Sharp, Toshiba, familiar names. Into the Sharp booth. The only vendor where I saw most of their UHD TV sets flat. So it was interesting. There were a number of claims. World's largest available HD set. Of course, you go into the Samsung booth, and you'll see in a minute they have a 110-inch. Samsung was advertising the first curved television set, and of course, everybody was showing curved television sets. So you can tell a lot of these booths are done in isolation of each other. This was a pretty spectacular display. It was not very bright, but this is their 85-inch 8K LED backlit set. Again, looking into the Samsung booth, we ventured into the Samsung booth. Not as big as the LG, but again, more of a small city than a booth. Everything TV was more or less curved. I've heard, and they mentioned at the fall conference, that flat panel production for Samsung is actually moving to China. They can't afford to make them in Korea anymore. And all the new curved sets will be made in Korea. So just gives you an idea. The curve of these new sets from the front looks quite pronounced, but when you actually look at them from the side, it's very modest. But it gives you the illusion it's curved more than it is when you look at them from the front. So their new UHD TV lineup will be curved and only curved. And this is a computer monitor, showing computer monitors that are curved. Curve was the theme of their booth, so everything in it was a curve. So this is their main lobby area. Of course, they were showing the world's first curved UHD TV, and of course, a lot of every other booth except Sharp was showing a UHD set, had a curved set. So this is a 110-inch they're showing, curved of course. And again, the illusion of those sets being more curved than they are. You can see for a television control room, right? When you start going multi-viewers, you can see how much of an advantage that might be when you get into really big control room assemblies. Over into some familiar territory. One of the things I really liked, Fujifilm and a number of others were showing a Back to the Future version of a Polaroid camera. You take a picture, a little film pack comes out, and it actually develops in front of your eyes. There are a number of vendors showing that and introducing those as new cameras. Fuji was actually getting a lot of traction. About $1 a print for something that big, and everybody's asking when they'd be available. Polaroid was showing a 4K set under $1,000. So the Polaroid name, not sure which Asian company owns them, but they were basically showing very inexpensive stuff and cameras that spin out. The old-fashioned paper. I don't want to take too much of a poke at Sony. Their booth was very, very big. It did not seem to be populated with a lot of product. But it was a huge circle of these elaborate projector screens. Canon had a very popular booth, had a shooting gallery, as I would call it. You go test and drive any of their products. So this is back in the central hall and back where they had most of the film and photographic stuff. Again, I think this is still in the Canon. Oh no, so this is out in the food court. Samsung had another display, so another large area. So as you walked out of the central hall along the food court area into the north hall, you saw another large, and they were using, I guess they sponsored the Galaxy soccer team as part of the play on words for the Samsung Galaxy phone. Margaritaville was showing a little car. I don't know if you want any advice on Las Vegas, this is unquestionably the worst restaurant I've ever eaten. So into the North Hall, that was more or less completely devoted to automotive, with one exception. So you can go into the North Hall and sit in one of these various simulators. This one was the Pioneer one. Most of them you could go in and get blasted by unconscionably loud audio. So, Pioneer, Sherwin-Vega. This is another one of those simulators. You could get in this thing. They would drop the hood and subject you to 115 decibels. Thought this was really cute. If you remember the old dual turntable line, a lot of names have been bought by other companies and resurrected as nostalgia. This is the Chrysler booth. This is a Dodge Viper Comp Coupe. This is Chrysler was one of the few cars that was that weren't really showing a lot of electronics in the cars. I have another joke about this, but this is a family show and I can't say it, but this is a lady standing on a large control knob. This is the Mazda booth. It's huge, and basically they had even some notable personalities coming by to talk about the Mazda connected cars. Some of the Japanese and Korean car companies are getting completely freaky with the connected car concept. So these are one of the various car simulators you could sit in the Mazda booth. The Kia booth, I could have shown a lot of pictures here, but in the interest of time, they just had some bizarre concepts in both electronics and cars, showing a lot of stuff to make sure you don't run over somebody in an intersection. This thing won't let you step on the gas if it sees somebody walking in front of you. This is one of the main, this is a heads-up display, tells you how to park, tells you how to drive, basically means you can go to sleep and your car will find its way home. Ford, every single car company was, of the American car companies, this probably had the most electronic theme to it. So it talked about the Ford connected car concept and had several examples of it throughout the booth. Toyota, again, probably a little more understated in their stuff. But it was just weird. I mean, literally there was more space. Imagine the entire North Hall completely automotive and automotive technology. Big change, big evolution in CES. Everybody's oohing and awing over this Audi. I don't like Audis, but it was a car that was unveiled for the first time at CES. Mercedes-Benz. They changed their cars every day. So every day that you came to the booth, they had a different car, and they introduced some new models and types of models every day at CES. A tremendous amount. I was careful about which camera angle. This company made adult toys connected and controlled by your smartphone or tablet. This was a chopper. I had no idea what it did, but they were trying to show they were trying to show that you could actually get on and drive that thing and listen to some audio. As I came back through the central hall, everybody, I had missed this on the outside of the LT booth. This was an utterly massive, super impressive. Imagine the resolution of each of these sets combined to show a 3D display. It was absolutely spectacular. It had no commercial relevance whatsoever, but it was absolutely spectacular. There was a horde of people. They were handing out hundreds of glasses at a time, and it was absolutely spectacular to watch. Like, even I, having seen as much 3D as I've seen, ducked a little when things came at me. And back to the elderly booth where they had a giant, where I noticed a giant washing machine. And again, this is one of the Chinese companies showing a province and in all the things within it. So the last slide I have, I had no idea what this was, but they had won a trophy for it. So add a couple of dummy machine guns, put a skull on it, and that's CES.
Any questions for Paul? Okay, so moving on from sort of one Canadian governor onto the new Canadian governor. So Brandon Conrad's been involved with the broadcast industry for over 30 years. Started with broadcast video systems in '82. He learned the ropes as a technician, progressing to sales. In '90, he joined Leach Technology as a sales engineer and moved into product marketing. And in sort of moved product marketing in '98, and he's been focusing on audio and video processing. He's currently the product manager for digital products, and he's now our Canadian governor.
Thanks, Lee. It's kind of strange. It feels really good to be back here. I was involved with the local section for 8 years. I was thinking back today, the first SMPTE meeting I went to. It was a tour. It was the George Malcolm control room at Dome. So we all figured in the board meeting that was late 80s. So that's kind of when I was still at broadcast video. When I went into Leach, that's when I joined SMPTE. So I started to hit the journal and whoa, geez, this thing ever technical, right? And then I remember I spoke to somebody at a meeting once. His name was Jack Sinclair. I don't know if anyone remembers Jack. His dad was Gordon Sinclair. He was quite a famous on-air broadcaster. And I said to Jack, how do you get involved in SMPTE? He went, you want to get involved in SMPTE? I said, no, that's not what I said. And before I knew it, I was nominated. And, you know, it's funny, that kind of thing just progressed over time. In my job as a product manager, when I got into the whole marketing, SMPTE became, that journal became the thing you read to keep that edge on the technology. You know, you want to know what's happening in 2 or 3 years out. So, you know, that's kind of the story for me, like, why SMPTE? The educational part of it, of course, getting together with your peers. And now, the governor part kind of came along through a nomination again. And it's been really busy for me lately, so kind of left everything to the last moment. It's kind of human nature to do so. So when I started to look at what the governor's role was, I realized that I didn't really see the inside of the whole society and how it works. So I think I'm going to be learning about that. I got a quick brain dump from Paul. I actually had some questions from him about what the governor does. He helped me out with that. But when I went through all the materials that I've been sent, essentially what happens is we meet 3 times a year, the governors. We represent the society at industry events. We get involved in committees. That was kind of the part I was unsure about. So I'm going to be getting involved in some committees, task forces. The thing is, we also look and review and approve and manage all the business plans behind the society, the budgets, the compliance, reviews. And then we represent the interests of, for instance, this section, the Toronto section, through various activities. So there's the standards, there's the conferences, there's the journals, and all the other activities that we're involved in. And the last part is kind of raising money through encouraging membership, which is really the key part of the whole society, is sustaining the membership and finding new members. And it's interesting. I have a little note here. I received an email the other day, and there's 4 new members. I don't know if they're here tonight, but I just thought I'd mention by name. We've got Zayden from Cisco, Liz Thorpe from Shaw Media, Nathan Campbell, and James Morrison at Bell Media. Now, when I saw Jim's name, I went, gee, he must have renewed his membership. So, hello to the new members if you're here. Now, that's what the governors do. As a governor, I just got a couple of notes here. There's a list of obligations, responsibilities. I'm not going to go through all of them, but when you get involved, you have to attend the meetings. I mean, that's kind of a given if you're going to accept the nomination, so you have to make the time for it. There's a fair amount of preparation before these meetings. I've been in one teleconference so far, which was a rather short meeting, winding up some business from last year. But we're having our first 2 meetings this weekend in Palm Springs, so that's one of the benefits, I suppose, of being governor, is I get to go to Palm Springs during the winter time too. So there's the committees. We attend and support events. We promote, of course, the mission behind the entire society. Actively recruit new SMPTE members. So I want everyone tonight, you don't have to go out and do this immediately, but think of someone you know who would benefit by getting the journal, by keeping up with what's going on, kind of seeing out the next couple of years. It's interesting, I had a meeting, I wasn't here last meeting because I was at technical meetings inside Harris, and I brought forward, how many people in the room were actually members. So, actively recruiting, I do it all the time. Let's see. Essentially, the rest of it is all of what you need to do to participate in these meetings. The one I kind of found interesting is the last one, understanding parliamentary procedure. So I guess there is some politics involved, but at the same time, there has to be a means to keep the society going, and I guess I've become part of that, other than being involved in the local section for years. So with that, I'll try and report back every once in a while and let you know how it's going. It's a 2-year term. And with that, does anyone have any questions for the new governor?
I need to correct you on one major error you made. When you get home, immediately write to somebody you know or more than one and tell them about membership and tell them about our technical seminar that we want papers submitted.
I wanted to do a little bit more subliminally, like 2 weeks from now, oh, geez, I should do that, as opposed to...
As soon as you get home.
As soon as you get home, listen to Paul. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, so for the rest of the evening, we'll be doing a sort of an update on some of the standards activities that Cindy's been involved with. So Alan's going to sort of start us off. He's going to cover sort of a variety of miscellaneous standards, and then I'm going to sort of talk about some networking standards. Paul's then going to sort of finish us off with a little bit more on some networking standards and get into some UHTTP and a few other things. Let me just get Alan's thing here. Okay, so Alan's had a very long and distinguished career, so I'll give him a rather long bio. So Alan Lamscheid retired in June of last year from Evertz, where he was there for 34 years. His most recent roles there was Vice President of Engineering, responsible for the general oversight of R&D and product development. Alan was instrumental in the development of first commercial products for the tracking of film barcodes in the film-to-tape transfer suites in Hollywood, developing end-to-end systems that enabled widespread development of key code through the world. He's the co-inventor of the 3-line VidC and the film transfer metadata, which were both standardized by SMPTE. He pioneered encoding and film transfer metadata in 1080p 24 high definition, and worked with other manufacturers to advance the technology in 422 digital acquisition for feature films. And he's personally credited in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So next time you watch that, check in the credits for Alan.
Gotta wait to the very end.
It's right at the very end. So that'll be your homework for the weekend. Watch the movie. While he was at Evers, he was a very active member with the SMPTE technology committees. He's authored several standards. He's was the co-chair of 32NF, the Network Facilities Architecture Committee. And he's, in 2013, he was elected to the position of SMPTE Vice President Standards. And everyone, let's welcome Alan.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Excuse me, I'll have to step my water here. Staff, pardon my voice, I've been fighting a cold for the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to just review a few of the things that we talked about a year ago almost, when we did this last year. For those of you who weren't here, and I've updated some of the information, and then we're going to talk about a bunch of new things, miscellaneous. My stuff is more miscellaneous stuff that we couldn't fit into other categories, and then Lee and Paul are going to talk about some of the more specific stuff at the end. So, as Paul mentioned earlier, there are three pillars that SMPTE stands on: there's membership, standards, and education. And I guess tonight we're going to hit two of those because it's an education about standards, but
For our membership.
and membership. Actually, we're going to hit all three pillars, but we're going to talk about standards. Standards really is, I think, the early days of SMPTE were focused around standards in the film industry, and the problem was, if you don't know the history behind why the